Hello. I'm coming to you from my office at CSU. That's why it looks so weird in here. But I wanted to get you some feedback while I can so that you can start practicing. A lot of your playing looks really extraordinarily good, and so I'm really encouraged to see that, especially the improvements in the finger motions. I'm going to start with the Bach because I think that this has the fewest things to actually fix. To be honest with you, I think that it's going very well because things have lightened up a lot. That's one of the big factors, I think. Balance is looking good. You're using your arms a lot more. My only concern is that it's starting to get a little bit too fast right now. In other words, you're doing a very good job of feeling the big beats, but there is the slightest little touch of swing to it. I know that sounds a bit strange, but instead of okay, that's very aggressive rhythm what I'm doing there, and it's very straight 16th note. So again, what I'm going to hear is whereas what I got a lot of is I got more of a so there's this weird sense of swing to it, and if you'll go back and you'll listen to it, you'll actually hear that there's a little lag in your 16th notes. What this means to me is it means that things are going just a hair too fast right now. So I want you to get to where you're able to comprehend these 16th notes very evenly. So my prescription for this is really quite simple. What I would recommend is putting a metronome on. Right now you're playing in that really good 96 to 108 range, which is where this should be. I'd like you to put it down to about 180, and the only thing that I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have 16th notes on the metronome. Now, the reason for this, of course, is so that the metronome is dictating the subdivision for you. I know this is a very basic thing that I'm asking you for, but it's really one of the final steps for you here. So hearing 1E and a 2E and a 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3 and 4. 1E and a 2E and a 3 and 4 and E and a 2E and a 3 and 4 and. Really feeling that rhythmically is going to be a major key here. Now, the other piece of advice that I would give you, drops are looking good. I don't have a whole lot of issue with the way that your arms are moving on the drops. This is actually really quite good. What I'd like to see a little bit more of, and I'm going to comment on this on the Satie, the Gymnopédie, and I'm also going to comment on this with the Beethoven as well. You've done some good work with your fingers. Your fingers are starting to time properly, like I've mentioned a couple of times before. I want you to start looking at how your wrists assist your fingers. Okay, and so what I mean by this is, for instance, in the Bach. Okay, on the piano, we both know that when notes are going up in pitch, they go to the right, and when they go down in pitch, they go to the left. So if you're doing da da dee da, you had to go to the right. You know, E A C, you're going to the right. Da da dee dum. If you're doing that, ba ba be ba, then what you have to do is your wrist has to slightly start being pulled to the right. And what I mean by this, of course, is that if you're playing something, and I'll do it here, just so that you can kind of see here. All right, so I could just tap like this, which is, you know, this is perfectly fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with this. Da, da, dee, da. But on the piano, what we want is we want to start getting this feeling of da, da, dee, da. And you can see that there's this slight sense of just movement here. In other words, I'm now assisting my fingers on getting into the proper place. And so doing this, da, da, dee, da. You can swirl it if you'd like to. My tendency on swirls is I feel like doing this is a little heavy. You may really like it, da-da-dee-da, like this. But I just feel like doing a side-to-side, ba-ba-beep, ba-ba-ba, beep, ba, beep, ba, beep, ba-ba-ba, beep, ba-ba-ba, beep, ba-ba. Every single time that the notes move, you actually assist them by either moving to the right or moving to the left. It's really very simple if you think about it. It's not rocket science in that way. It's just if the notes are going up on the piano or to the right, you need to assist them by moving your wrist to the right. And it's really more of a swivel motion, you know, so it's not this. This is a different thing, this ball joint here. That's not what I'm really looking for here. All I'm looking for is just for you to swivel back and forth. It's kind of like if you imagine somebody rollerblading, just going to the right, going to the left, or, you know, playing, you know, table hockey or something like that, just to where it's moving this way, not moving around a lot like this. You can if you'd like. I just feel like the swirls are a little heavy. Doing this in each hand and doing it very slightly, especially when the 16ths come in, are going to be a means of helping you to keep your fingers and your arms in tempo. And so what I want you to start saying is I want you to see this bum, bum, beam, bum, 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 beam, bum, bum, left, right, 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 left, left, right, right, left, left, like that. Okay, and so getting your arms to where they're actually moving in this way is going to be really, really crucial. Okay, so if you were to think about that, how that would actually happen in something like the Je ne peux pas as well, that means that every time that the melody moves, you know this bum ba da 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 dum bum. You can see that it's moving gradually to the right and then gradually to the left, and you have to keep pulling, pulling, pulling with this. And to get the sensation right, I mean, it's really kind of hard to do at first if you've never done a lot of it, although I think you're pretty good with your arms. You just have to really concentrate to make sure that you're adding this. But if you practice it consistently for a week or two, you can start burning it into your technique. It's just something that your hand does. Okay, your fingers always move. You tap, you know, bum, ba, da, da, bum, 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 bum. You tap, just like I was doing there. But what you add to it is bum, right, left, 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 right, right, left. Just kind of start moving your arms like this. Now, again, you have a couple of choices here. First choice is if you were to imagine that I got a big drill. I drilled a bunch of little screws in here. You know, let's say I drilled like 3 screws in here. One here on the side, and then one here, like that. And I put string on them. What I would have there is I could then start manipulating it. I could pull it this way. I could tip it this way. I can move it over here. I'd have to use my elbow to do a little bit of that. Or I could do this. Okay, so you can either go in a ball, swivel back and forth. So when you're playing the Je ne peux pas, you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to do this with the melody line, because what I notice is that your fingers are doing it, but there's not a lot of follow through with the arm, especially if the notes are long. If the notes are long, you want this sense of kind of a milky release like this. So, you know, like this. There's this sense of expansion or growth. Something they like to talk about in the ballet here, actually, is that whenever the dancers are in a position, they should never be static. There should never be a sense of stillness. There's always a sense of expansion. So what they're always doing is they're trying to open their bodies up a little bit, open up, open up, open up. The way that we open up is we open up this way. So, bum, bee, bum, as opposed to bum, bum, bum. Now, this is a bit of a misnomer. I know what you're thinking. You know, you're probably thinking. I have no idea what you're thinking, but what I would think here is I would say, well, the piano doesn't crescendo like that. Only the cello or the violin, or to be honest with you, every other instrument on the planet except for the piano and then other percussion instruments can actually swell. Piano can't swell. That's true. I get that. But you want to have, first off, just for visual aesthetic, you want this sense of opening. You can hold on to the note like this. So, and then you can go like that. Or you could release it. You could do that, but that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to actually release. Or not, it's actually supposed to not release, it's supposed to hold. And so when you're doing that, I want you to think, okay, am I moving to the right? Am I carrying my arm to the right? So, and to give you a full look at that, it's a full carry like this. So over, like this. And so you don't have to do a lot of this, a lot of spinning, things of that sort. You just have to go to the right or to the left. That's all you really have to do. Okay, now, other than that, I think you're doing a really good job with the Je ne peux pas and the Bach. Okay, so it's really just a matter of seeing how your fingers move. Now, the Bach, the only thing that I also see, okay, going back to the Bach, is, I don't know if I relayed this to you last week, but I want to relay it again. For probably a decade, I've been talking about drops. Pick up, drop, pick up, drop. I made a discovery about that, about myself, that I don't drop, per se. In other words, this. It's like there's a string here, I cut it, and I go like that. That's a drop. In other words, that means that I just cut the string here and it just falls, it crashes, right? What I do is I do more of a throw. I throw slightly. In other words, do I throw the ball a little bit? Do I throw the ball a lot? But the thing is, whenever I drop, I'm thinking about how much force do I have to throw into the piano with. So if your drops on da 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 be da dee, something like that, ba da dee da 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 be da dee, be da dee, you can see I'm throwing slightly. I'm up and here. So a drop would be something like, it would go down like this, you know, whoop. Whereas a throw, well, there's the slight, and I'm telling you, man, it's very, very slight. It's extremely slight what you do here. You're very almost lobbing it in there. You're just like, whoo, like that, like you're throwing a yo-yo, you know, in other words, from your finger, yo-yo down. Just so that there's this little flick of the wrist that's going to help. So every time that you have a drop, you want to make sure that it's a very well-timed drop. Ba-da-dee-da-da-da-da-da. So ba-da-dee-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-dee-da-dee-da-dee-da. So what I would practice here are a couple of things. First thing is just to get your mind in the right place. Okay, just to get your mind in the right place. I would use my second finger and my fourth. So these two fingers here, pointer, the ring finger, both at the same time. And I would just drop on thirds, C and E. So let's see. So I would do bum, 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 and so forth. Okay. And so the idea here is that you want to get to where you can say, I can throw the ball at this speed, at this speed, at this speed. And this consistency of drop velocity, or this throwing velocity on every one of your drops is going to be paramount. That's the new place. So just to kind of sum up for the Bach, what you would need to do. Okay. First is slow down a little bit. Drop your metronome to 16th note subdivision. Try doing something like around 80. Okay. This is so that you can get your rhythmical precision under control. You can do it hand separately if you'd like. I don't really see that being necessary. As long as you're listening, as long as you're really hearing it, I think you're going to be fine. You just have to filter that through some intellect. This is that difference that we were talking about between impression, which is you just hearing the notes, you know, just listening to it, and perception, whereas not only are you hearing the notes, not only are the vibrations hitting your ears, but you're also filtering that data through your mind. You know, something I like to tell my older students is anybody can read data, but the guys who get paid a lot are the ones who can interpret the data. And so your interpretation of what you're hearing is very important. So you have to ask yourself, is it even? In other words, is it rhythmically even? Da da dee da 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 dee da dee do dee. You know, perfect spacing and all that kind of stuff. And second of all, do the notes sound for the most part tonally equal? Are certain notes not playing enough? Are certain notes accenting? And are there kind of jagged accents or awkward dynamics going on? As long as you don't hear those things, you're doing a good job. I mean, that's really kind of how it is. We can start putting a really fine point on your shaping and all of that, but for right now, that evenness is the really big factor. The lightness is there, and the timing is there, and so that I'm really glad to see. Now, going into a little more depth with the gymnopédie now. Okay. We already talked about this whole idea of a more fluid wrist. You want this sense of lightness. It's so hard, I think, because your arm has to feel like it's floating in the air, you know, and I mean, for my personality, I'm not really, you know, I don't like everything to be so airy and floaty and all that. I like a sense of control. I like to really be thinking, well, what's the rhythm? What's happening with it? What's the tonal quality and all that? But your ability to control your arm weight is very similar to what a string player has to do with bow weight. And so you're going to have to really get to a point to where when you're playing this, you feel like you're holding your arm, and part of this is I think you sit a little on the low side. This is not really your fault because you're trying to pedal. That's a really big part of it. Because you're probably sitting right now about yay too low. Now, it's not really hurting your playing much. It's just it's hard for your arm to feel suspended when it's hanging down so low. And so that's something I'm willing to kind of take, but if you still have a pedal extender and all that, and you're willing to still use it right now, you know, for a little bit, that would help things out a lot as far as this feeling of suspension. It's not hearing the Bach or the Tchaikovsky, but the Gymnopédie requires a certain sense of lightness and almost an ethereal kind of sound. And so practicing with this light arm, again, this whole idea of falling into some thirds, on C and E, so that C, E, falling into that, and then falling into D and F, and then picking up, and then falling into E and G. And having that slight thrust with it is going to help a lot. But one thing I'd like you to do is you're doing a lot better job with your left hand this week. I mean, a lot better job. One thing that can help you fight any kind of motor memory or muscle memory, because you want to really be working on your intellectual memory too, is to play the low notes. So doing. So what does it start? It starts on a G, so it will be so bum, then bum, bum, boom, bum. Doing the low G with your left hand, basically the lowest note, and then doing the high chord with your right hand, and going through about 8 counts or so, about 8 bars or in 4-bar chunks. To be honest with you, you could do this according to the phrase marks that are actually indicated in your score, and I think that's something that can actually work very well. I'm actually going to get some measure numbers for you here. So if I was doing this, I would look at, obviously you can do the opener. I mean, that you don't have to worry about too much because it's constantly going, G to B minor, D to F sharp minor. That's all it does for page after page. But when it starts to get a little bit more difficult and the chord shapes begin to change, I'm thinking somewhere around measure 18, okay? Or maybe even before that, maybe measure 17. Where things begin to start looking a little bit odd, what you can do is you can take that difficulty of your left hand having to control all of it and just say, what shapes do I need for this? Because there are some very odd shapes in here. And so that's one thing that you could definitely do as far as that goes, to get that just a hair more solid. Tempo is good. And the way that you feel the beat is actually going to be something that I talk about a little bit in the Beethoven as well. What's interesting is that you actually have 2 pieces that are in mathematically the same key, or not the same key, but the same meter. 3/4 for the Gymnopédie and 6/8 for the Beethoven. Now, from math, of course, I'm sure that you've done this, that what we have with 3/4 is we have a properly reduced fraction, whereas with 6/8, that doesn't really work because 6/8 you have to simplify it or reduce it to 3/4 so that you can't keep dividing it by 2s. But in music, that's a really important distinction that we make because it has to do with accentuation. Now with the Gymnopédie, I like your tempo just fine as long as I start seeing some more graceful arm movements. I think you can totally get away with it. This boom, that is very slow and sad, which is what we're asked for here. The way I would count it, of course, is and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Couldn't decide if I wanted to sing it or not. So 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, 5, 6, 7, and so 1 count per beat. That means that there's 1 accent in every bar. All right. If you go to 6/8, however, this is a different thing. The way that you're playing the Beethoven right now is you're doing this strange kind of 3/4 in your Beethoven. And I actually have it here, so I want to double check how you're playing it, but I have it right here. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. So I'm hearing 2 and 3 and bum bum bottom bum 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 bottom, like this, and the 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, like that, right? Okay, now the reason that doesn't work in 6/8 is because 6/8 again is 6/8 is 2 groups of 3, whereas 3/4 is 3 groups of 2. Now of course what I mean by that is 3/4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Cut that into eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and Okay, I mean, it's super easy, right? You've done the star, you know how this works. Going to 6/8, we still have 6 notes. If I was to count those 6 notes in 3/4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, what if I switched it to 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, that works. Okay, so that's technically 6/8 notes, so that could be 6/8, right? Well, the way that we count 6/8 is it's actually 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a ba 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 ba. So that's 2 groups of 3. Again, going to 3 groups of 2. Boop ba boop ba boop ba. 1 2 1 2 1 2. 2 groups of 3. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Okay. So what I would advise is a very easy exercise for you. Is to where you count to 6 and you change your emphasis like this. 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. So you saw my first one that I did is I accented the number 1, the number 3, the number 5, basically the odd numbers in there. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 like that. The second one I only emphasized number 1 and number 4. 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay. Now, why am I belaboring the point on this? Why do I think this is so important? Because when I look at this score, it's in 6/8. This is the emphasis. A 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and da 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 da. Still 1 beat per bar. But instead of 2 and da 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 like that, because I'm getting a lot of that 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and it should be bum 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 ba da bum 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 ba da. What Beethoven's doing here that's so odd, but he does this in so many of his rondos. He doesn't start on beat 1. A 2 and a 1 and 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 like that. Now, I mean, I could go further and count it. A 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. But you can feel how syncopated that is. And he's doing that on purpose just because, you know, I don't know if you've ever heard the first movement of this thing, but it's such a downer. It's so sad. You know, it's very, very kind of a little soulful, little, I would say, you know, do-re-roo, like the Jeopardy thing. And so you want to get this down. So you're going to have to practice while you're actually playing it. You're going to have to practice putting the accent on beat 1. Now, if you look at your score, you look at where the slurs are. They tend to be on beat 1, with one exception. That's the sforzando in the third full measure. A 2 and a down, bum 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 ba dum bing bum 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 ya da 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 da. And then he fixes it in the 5th bar. He puts another slur. And so there's a tiny crescendo that happens. Bum 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 ba dum bum 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 ba dum beep bum 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 ya bum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum 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 ba dum beep bum 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 ba dum bum ba de bum bum. And you saw where I was putting my accents. It's basically where the slurs happen. That's why you have to drop on them. And so that was one of the first things that I really heard. And I feel like your balance is really good and your direction is really good, but I think that misunderstanding of rhythm is really, really hurting you here. As far as your motions are concerned, actually, I think you're doing a really good job. I'll tell you, I was getting ready to eyeball you. I was getting ready to really, really dig into you when it gets to the key change of 2 flats, when it goes to G minor. Actually, your hand's doing a good job. I gotta say, that left hand. I saw your mom did that zoom in so I could see it. You know, see how you're doing. What I like is that you got some thumb support now. If you actually look at your hand, man, I mean, it's starting to really, you know, like this. The only thing that's missing is that you're doing this really well. You know, you know, you're getting to where that mechanism's working very well. Only things you gotta ask yourself is, how can your wrist help you out? Well, we've been talking about your pinky being, you know, not pivoting, right? I say, no, make your pinky play, you can't do it. We're doing that so that your pinky learns how to articulate. He learns how to go beep, like that. But that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve some help. So now that you're getting this up to a good tempo, you can actually start doing it this way. If you're looking at it, it goes left, right, left, 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 left. So I'm doing is left, right, boop, 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 boop. So the rhythm that I have here is I'm going left, right, left, then I play. Left, right, left, play, play, play. Left, right, left, play, play, play. Left, right, left, play, play, play. So there's this thing up 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Because he's doing the same thing here. If you look at your slurs, 1, a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7 and an 8. A 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and so forth. He has all these drops. Every time that you drop in the right hand, what you can do is while this hand is dropping, the right hand, this is your right hand, while it's dropping, boom, like that. This one can learn to actually do that. So what you can do is you can actually go like that. In other words, you throw to the left with your left hand because that's where the low notes are. Do like that. And this one could be doing bum 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 bum. You can be doing all of your drops on your slurs here. And so that was one thing that I really noticed. Now the other thing that I kind of want you to start looking at is, again, feeling this thing as 1 or maximum 2 beats per bar. And the reason that I'm getting you on that is because I noticed that there was a marked tempo change from your opening. Bum ba dum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bing bum 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 yum bum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum 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 ba dum bing bum 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 bing bum 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 bing bum bum bum. Then you start picking it up a little bit, right? And then it starts getting faster. Then when you hit this bum bee bum ba ba bum bum bee ba 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 da ba ba, then you start to kind of feel it in 6, but you interpreted that as going a little faster. So what you're going to probably have to do, I'm thinking that's between about 72 and 80. I would put triplets on. Triplets between about 72 and 80. That way you can actually hear the accents, 1 and 2 and like that. Now, the other thing that I would really recommend, is everything that I've talked to you about today. Feel with the Bach, for instance, feeling the rhythmical pulse. I think that that's, again, what I'm talking about here with the Beethoven, is feeling the rhythmical pulse. The idea of throwing at the same speed for each one of these things. If you have a relatively aggressive accent, throw a little faster, push a little faster, just everything's a little bit faster. But for the most part, everything has a basic speed. You saw I had that big burst of air to get the accent. And so that's something that should go with the Beethoven as well. It's just that you have to have precision with your triplets as opposed to precision with your 16th notes. Again, what I was talking about with the Je n'en peux dire, the whole idea of your wrist starting to move. This isn't just for slow music. It's not just for fast music or happy music. It's pretty much with piano, it's for all music. You want that mechanism to start becoming active, and an active part that is working in conjunction with your fingers. Because what I've been getting onto you for a long time that you're really just now starting to get out of, which I'm happy about again, is this whole idea of your finger mechanism was never really activated. Whereas now it's starting to activate. And because it's activated, now is a good time for you to say, my fingers are always moving, but my wrists are always helping. My arms are always helping. And the best place to help on that is dropping at the beginning of a phrase, picking up at the end of a phrase as a release. So, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 ba-dum, bing, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, ba-da. You can even practice it like I'm doing like that. You can see I'm doing da, 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 dee, da, 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 throw, da, dee, da, 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 ba-da, ba-da, And I know that you go, yup, ba-da. That's probably a push. Da, 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 down, up, da, 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 dee, da, 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 up. Down. You can do it however it feels good, man. This is why with motions and things, I try not to really work too hard on these with you guys because everybody feels rhythmical stuff differently. I don't think there's a right and wrong way of using your arms as long as it's intelligent and it works and it gets the job done for you. And so, and then of course moving your wrist to the right and to the left. I mean, you can do the same thing when you're playing the opener, you know, ba, 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 ba. You can go down, down, right, right, right. You know, da 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 dee da 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 dee. You can do a lot of movement to the left and right. And this will help you start getting into these places. You're like, hey, I'm going to get over to the D here. Hey, I'm going to get over to the B over here. There's this feeling of constantly moving. Again, it's like it's if you've ever seen like speed skaters or somebody on rollerblades, they're just always going back and forth. They don't go straight. There's this sense of movement like this. And that's the kind of movement you want in your wrist, again, going back and forth. And so I think applying all of these things is going to be immensely, immensely helpful for you. Just start learning a little bit more material, okay? And what I'd like to talk to you about next week is I'd like to go a little bit more into some of the analysis parts of this, but also I'd like to just give you some things to start looking at and just analyzing. Just very easy sight reading, you know, nothing that's difficult for you. And you'll be more concerned about what's going on than what you're actually doing. And so that's going to be a big focus in your next lesson. And so I'll encourage you to try to fix these things that I'm talking about because they will help you. They will assist you. But next week is going to be probably pretty theoretically heavy. And so make sure that you're doing, you know, any repetitions on this that you need to do and that you're focusing on rhythmical precision, a nice loose but mobile wrist and arm, and you keep your fingers moving. But in general, I think these are all going very, very well. Don't forget what I told you about the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. That's a really big deal, the difference between 3/4 and 6/8. So make sure that you're looking at your counts as far as that goes. The Bach, don't forget to slow it down just a little bit. You don't have to be slow all week, but you want to start hearing this as a subdivided entity. That because Bach does this kind of what we like to call perpetual motion, just always moving, you know, just keeping that going. And you have these two rhythms that are going on. But the one rhythm that's going through it is, if you were to combine both of the things, if you were to combine both the staves, you would count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 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 E and a 1 E and it never stops doing 16th note subdivision. Not once, not one measure. So you want to make sure that those suckers are absolutely perfect. Okay, and so, but humongous improvements this week. Every week has been an improvement. You should be proud of yourself as far as that goes. You've been consistently doing much better. And so be working on those things, and I really hope that what I've told you here has given you some help. But things are going very well, and I will plan on seeing you on Saturday. And what we'll probably be doing once we start having some analysis and things of that sort, one thing that you can definitely do, and we'll mention this in lesson as well, is once I've given you a piece of paper or something like that to do an analysis, you can definitely take a picture of that and then send that to me, and then I can go over what you do on that on our video lessons as well. So I really do want you to start getting to where you see music as a language that is to be deconstructed and understood, because that's honestly how I see it, and I think it's just a lot more rewarding that way, because I don't have perfect pitch or anything, like some of my students do. They can really just hear what's going on, so they have this ability to comprehend it, orally like that, but I can comprehend it from the written page here very, very clearly, and I want you to be able to do the same, and so I'm going to be helping you with that over the next few months. All right, like I said, I hope this is immensely helpful for you, and I will see you on Saturday. All right.